So, Master Mark Hutton, what is up, sir? How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. So nice to hear from you. And listen, what an honour it is to be asked on your black belt. I've heard a few very good things about it. I
I'll
haven't
take.
heard it myself because being the old guy I am, I don't access podcasts. But I've heard a lot of good things, so it's great to be here.
Oh, well, thanks a million for coming on. And like we've had a lot of people with lots of different experiences. So, like some, I suppose, some recent champions. We've had some champions in that from previous times. So it's good to have you on and hear your story and your journey, and maybe share some experiences.
My pleasure.
But like that, just with the, I suppose, with the lockdown and stuff, how have you found training online versus in person? Is it something that you like? Have you found much of a difference?
Well, yes. Obviously there's no real substitute when it comes to the martial art, because physical contact is absolutely essential. No contact, no point. That's really quite simple as that. However, there's a lot of fantastic things we've got from the online training. We've actually developed an online e-learning hub here. So going forward, that will be a huge part of our training going forward. It gives massive opportunities to really help people who can't be here 4, 5 and 6 times a week to access catch-up classes, online classes, classes at home, all these type of things that they can't actually get here. So there's huge benefits, that'll come out of this. Like every cloud, there's massive silver linings. And we've got a lot from this time, a lot to learn from this time, a lot to be grateful for going forward as well. But it has been obviously very challenging, and we miss our people and our people miss us. We all miss each other, let's face it. That's the biggest thing. We miss each other. We miss that human interaction, which is massively important for us.
Yeah. Like I've definitely found like that it's not the same. The last time we were on Zoom, I didn't find it too bad, but this time I've been really struggling this time to keep the energy going and that. But like that, hopefully it won't be for too long. Like I said, I think we're lucky as like with taekwondo that like there's a lot of other sports, a lot of other clubs that they don't, like online just wouldn't work. Like if you're a soccer club, like you can't do online to keep in contact with your members. But we have the benefit that Zoom allows us just to, even if the training quality isn't quite there, it allows you to maintain some sort of contact with your members and allows them to, at least, even if it not necessarily improve at the rate you would like, maybe maintain, so that when you get back in person, there's something to build on.
I have to say that for me, that's not quite the case for me, because it's incredible the progress of my students on Zoom. The kicking drills, the power stuff that we're doing on Zoom is just fantastic. So that's why for me, I'm one of these people here. Seem to be in the minority just now, but this is a massive tool going forward. This is massive opportunities going forward, as I say, to add to what we have, because I don't see this as, oh goodness me, we're back on Zoom. For me, not at all. It's like, wow, guys, fantastic. We're going to work on this and work on that. Obviously, we can't work on the power breaking or Hosen Sul or street defense, which for me is the single most important thing when it comes to the physicality. Beyond everything else, we can't do. But that'll come again. But right now, what we really can do is this, and take these great opportunities, because Zoom's fantastic. They achieve so many things, as I mentioned there. People coming home late from work, or they can't make it for different reasons. They've got this wonderful training tool going forward. When you take, for example, for me, for green stripe and above, where you need to be training 3 and 4 times a week at least, to achieve, to be a good martial artist. That's the case. That has to be the case. Now, if you can't get to class 3, 4 times a week, we understand that. But now, and we've always struggled in the past to help them to train out with the dojang. But now you've got your daily dojang, you've got your home dojang, and you can join my class here on Zoom, whether you can be here in person or not. So you're still getting that fantastic experience. So Zoom is like wow for me, So I just see nothing but great positives going forward. We all know we'll be back in the dojang. When it happens, sooner or later, but we'll be back. And now we've got the added benefit of this. So I would massively encourage everybody to have an online program going forward. I really would.
Yeah. Especially, I suppose you never know when you need it. Like, who would have called that we'd be in this position 12 months ago?
Exactly. And as I say, there's so much we are achieving. I've only done one online grading in the 10 months that we've been in lockdown, more or less, apart from a few weeks. I really took my time to work it out, and what would have taken 3 or 4 hours took us 2 days to do the slots, so I could make sure they were graded properly. But other than, I could say, the power breaking and the contact, I was so impressed by how the grading went. I was really thrilled to bits with everybody. And that's why we've developed this e-learning hub. So it's like an open university for taekwondo, where you step-by-step progress. You click the button to say that you've actually completed the work. I can see what you've done. You can send me the videos, and I teach you online. So it's again, it's a great opportunity. I'm sorry, I just see opportunities everywhere we go. Yeah. So it's a lot of great stuff.
Yeah. So look, I suppose we'll take it back. I tend to start with most people when they are on is how did you get started in taekwondo? Where did the journey begin for you? Why did you start?
Well, I did not want to do taekwondo. That was the one thing I didn't want to do. Like most people, as a kid, I did judo. Then, of course, karate. My father has 12 brothers and sisters, and they're all one of three things. My father was a wonderful boxer, and they asked him to go pro back in the early 60s, late 50s, I beg your pardon. He didn't do that. His father wouldn't give him the permission. He was a young man at the time. So it was off to the pit from my father. But his brothers and sisters were mainly karate and a couple of judo. So taekwondo in the 80s was a no-no. It was nothing more than a lightweight karate. That's how it was viewed. Unfortunately, it's getting viewed that way again, but that's a separate issue just now. Maybe it's not a separate issue, but we'll maybe come back to that. So really it was karate. So I went to karate. I did wado-ryu, I did wado-kai, I did shokokai. However, two of my uncles, given my father's big family, two of my uncles, they were only a couple of years older than me, just brought Bruce Lee to me. So I remember seeing clips from Enter the Dragon and Way of the Dragon. And the dragon whips its tail. It was the reverse turning kick that catches the guy in the head. And all the karate I went to, no one could kick like that. So I had to find something that would excite me like that. And eventually, I saw this advert, and it was Taekwondo Tom Packs Real Punch. It wasn't a good photograph. It was like this. And I remember saying, this is Grandmaster McCallum I'm talking about here, so please, oh, that guy's useless. That's just Taekwondo, and that's weak. But eventually I went to it, and I went in. It was Grandmaster McCallum's club. It was 1981 in Bathgate, which was about 8 miles from me. Took over an hour to get there in the bus. And it was Grandmaster Sullivan taking the classes. My Lord, my Lord, my Lord, she blew us away. She blew us away. You know what blew me away? Ann Palmomakis, 3 Ann Palmomakis. And she just generated such massive energy and power in this. Then watching her throwing these techniques, and everything was so powerful. I didn't even think this was only a lady at barely, she wasn't even 5 feet tall, for goodness sake. I'd been all these karate classes, judo classes, then a little bit of the boxing stuff, and this just blew me away. And from there, my friend, I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. Yeah. And that was it. From that point forward, taekwondo's been everything to me, and it still is today.
First day you knew that this was going to be. You got what you wanted. You got the I was only afraid that I wasn't good enough, and I couldn't make it. That's the only thing. That was the thing that scared the hell out of me. It took me 3 goes to go through the door in Bathgate. It was a solid door. You see behind me glass doors here. This is our second dojang that we've built in memory of Grandmaster Sullivan, who we lost in 2019. God rest her. She's on the wall. You can maybe see her back here on the wall here. Yeah. It took me 3 goes to go through the door. It was a solid door, which is why we have glass doors here all the time. It took me 3 weeks. Came back each week, and eventually I burst open through the door, and everyone stopped and looked at me. And you could have swallowed me up. I was 17 years old. I was painfully shy. And my friend, I was just so afraid that I wouldn't be able to make it. And that fear has never really left me. It's why I ended up training as hard and as dedicated as it became, because it was an inbuilt fear that I wouldn't be good enough. And from that point forward, I thought, if I train twice as hard as everybody else, if I train 3 times as hard as everybody else, then hopefully I can make it one day. From 40 years ago to today, I train every day. I train every day. The fear, maybe the fear, obviously the fear has evolved. I've become empowered more over the years, but still, there's that little boy inside me still that goes, hey, you've got to keep going. If you don't keep going, you'll lose it. So it's my passion. It's what I love. And watching young men like you coming through, and your instructor, for example, I believe your instructor is Mr. Byrne. Is that correct? Yeah, spot on. Yeah.
What a wonderful, wonderful guy, and a credit to ITF Taekwondo. So watching you guys develop over the years has given me such a thrill, So hey, we're blessed, my friend. We're an incredible martial art with incredible people in our ITF family and beyond. So hey, it's nothing but great stuff. I'm just thrilled to be part of it.
I think it's funny that you say that, because I think, like, and even I suppose kind of when I started it, and it's changing now. That for so long there was no real, like, I suppose, competitors or standout martial art that you could like Bruce Lee was the guy who was like, okay, a great martial artist, but to some degree you watched him in movies. Like, it was a movie star for martial artists that you had to watch. Whereas I think that's the benefit. Like, you know, like other sports, like I said already, like soccer, you could watch a soccer match and you see the best soccer players. You see, like, to see the best martial artists out there was so hard before. Like, it's mad that you had to find inspiration from watching movies. You know what I mean? To fall in love with martial arts. And I think that social media is starting to change that now. That there's the actual people you can look to be inspired.
Yeah. Well, not for me, because I mean, we had no social media obviously at all. We had Ricky Ha, for goodness sake. I mean, Ricky Ha just blew you away, my friend. He walked into a room and you went, wow, and you felt that presence. You're talking here about a man that just punching walls. His destruction was just beyond belief. When he looked at you, you quaked down at your feet. You know, we're not a sport, my friend. We're not a sport. We're a martial art. We have this phenomenal sport inside this martial art. But if you're a sport, you've lost so much of the overall picture. Your sport is enhanced by the power of the martial art. Because if I wanted to be a sport, I wouldn't be doing taekwondo. I'd be doing kickboxing. I'd be doing MMA. I wouldn't do taekwondo. I do one of those things, you know. As a martial artist, you've got the Hoshin show, the street defense, the power breaking. You know, you've got all of the inspiration and empowerment that you take from being a martial artist, and you know, and then you've got that incredible sport of taekwondo that's inside that. It's a short window. It's how we communicate with the world in general terms, and these phenomenal athletes that you see in front of us. You know, in my day, it was the goodness me, the English team at that time were phenomenal. Tony Sewell, Kim Stones, Kenny Walton, they were world champions in 1981 in Argentina. They came back there as kings and queens, and I watched them at the Scottish Championships in Meadowbank in 81. You're talking here about, wow, that world championship team on the floor. But what stole the show that night wasn't the world champions, my friend. It was the two Koreans walking onto the floor to do one step. Bam, that foot went to the head like that, you know. The Hoshin Soul, that was just so powerful, and you could think, damn, you wouldn't mess with that. There was some great sparrers, but they both walked off the floor like sparrers always do. These guys, a true martial artist, Hoshin Soul, you don't walk off the floor. You don't walk off the floor. You know, one guy goes down, one guy stays up, or maybe both go down at some point. But that's the inspiration that I took from the reality and the empowerment of the Riki Has, the Park Jung Taes, the CK Choi's, the Han Cha Kyos. These were the people that were just true warriors, that were true legends of Taekwondo. And that's what I still bring to my students. That's why they're on the wall. You know, and this side here, I've got our team here, Mrs. Mackenzie, you know, multiple European and world medalists, of course. On this side here, I've got Grandmaster Sillen, who, of course, herself was multiple British champion. But, you know, I've got people here that are truly inspiring as martial artists that will be here long after the tournament stop. That's where I really take the empowerment, and that's what I want my kids to do, because, you know, the high 90 percentile range of people walking in through the door, they will never be champion, let alone European or world champion. So if we're not inspiring them, if we're not letting them know that being European and world champion is not only is it not the be all and end all, but a great many European world champions are not fantastic martial artists. You know, they're fantastic sports people with great athletic ability. But a martial artist is different. It encompasses so much more. And guess what? You'll be a black belt one day. You can be a black belt one day if you really, really go for it. And you can be a phenomenal black belt. And not being a champion does not make you a poorer black belt. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have to. I suppose that's maybe the differences for me, and kind of like I know Mr. Burns kind of saying in our club, like it's Taekwondo is more the sport. It's what we enjoy to do, what I teach, what we enjoy to spend most of our time on is the sporting side, the sparring, the patterns. Yes, like you said, we touch on everything else, and what we do, but like it can be hard to, I suppose, you know, give as much time to every single discipline. So you have to prioritize, and for us, it's the sporting side, it's the competition side. Again, like it doesn't mean like you said. Like I said, we do touch on everything. It is a martial art, but we find, and like a lot of the martial arts stuff and the mindset comes, you can be trained through competition as well. Like I find that competition gives a great opportunity. Like, you know, when you talk about the tenets of Taekwondo and the mindset and the mentality, like courtesy towards your opponent, integrity, like perseverance, from going from competition to competition. Like there's a lot of sport inside the benefit that crosses over into the martial arts side, like you've said. But I suppose like you like to maybe focus more on the martial arts side, but I know there's other people who maybe it's more of a sport for other people.
Listen, I have to apologise because I put myself across poorly. They're not a separate. They are one. They are one together. The martial art, which is what you joined the school for in the first place, is what enhances the sport and vice versa. One without the other. And the martial art is not the martial art that it should be without the sport. And the sport's not the sport that should be without the martial art. Because your wonderful instructor, Mr. Byrne, that's how he was raised, through the martial art. And then that enhances sport and abilities and his credibility. And he is a phenomenal sportsman, a phenomenal sports mind and mentality through everything he's learned. But they're together, my friend. So I don't focus on one or the other. They're just all part of the one thing. The first 20 years of my training, all that mattered to me was winning medals. That sport was phenomenal. So when you're younger, you focus more on the sport, which is fantastic. But you have to understand that as you go on and come back out of that, there's so many things there that you can actually keep progressing with. Does that make sense? So you're not finished when your sporting career is over. The martial art is still there to keep you into the sport, whether you're a coach, whether you're an umpire or whatever, a referee, or whatever you might be. So there's so much more than just the sport alone. The martial art gives you everything. So that's what I meant to put across. So excuse me if I didn't put that across very well.
Oh, no,
sport is phenomenal, and our athletes really shine bright. They really shine bright. I'm so proud of them.
And like within your own club, would competition? Would you push competition? Like I know some clubs, like maybe they have a requirement that you can't grade until you've done so many competitions. I know some clubs, might encourage. Would it be something that you would look at? Would you look to force competition?
No. The moment you do that, you're telling your student that the competition is more important than other things, and it's not. It never ever should be. If I've got someone in my school and they have a physical disability that precludes them from going to competition, what message would that send to that person? You would have to go to a competition before you grade. Oh, but guess what? You can't do that, so we'll let you through. My friend, you have to be very careful in the message that you send out there. What we do here is we all have our own individual journeys. So if you're competitively minded, hey, let's go, boom, and we give you every tool under the sun and every encouragement to take you from local level to world champion. My friend, I've been training world champions for the last 30 years with Grandmaster Sullivan. You've had someone on your podcast, for goodness sake. So that's 100% the case. And we still will always do that. But we have to make sure that everyone walks in through that door has that opportunity to go as far as possible on their journey and not feel that they are lesser because their journey doesn't include being European or world champion or being part of the Scottish team. Do you know what I mean? So each person has to have that ability to go as far as they can. And I drive them and I pick them off the floor and tell them they can do better than they're doing. I kick their backside whether they're going to be a competitor or not, whether they're going to be an umpire or not, whether they're going to be somebody who never goes to a competition for different reasons, but they've still got a path there that is so worthwhile in their journey. So I'm just very, very, very keen to ensure that people who are not competitively minded understand that they still are worthwhile as a black belt, even if they don't compete. But what I will say is this: if they have the physical capability to compete, then they will compete before they get their black belt, because if they can experience it, then they should and must experience it. So that's what's very important to me.
That's what I thought, is that I feel like
100%.
like that, like I say, if there's a like outside circumstances for a reason, maybe you can't compete or you're maybe at a disadvantage then, but I definitely feel, I would agree that like you should be encouraged to try it and see, like, and like you said, it's I think when you give, sometimes I suppose it kind of comes back to, maybe setting a requirement to go into the competition. I think if you leave it up to this person, you want to stay in the comfort zone, they'll naturally maybe shy away. Oh, I don't want to do that. That makes me nervous. I'm scared. So that's a big thing why we try to push people into the competition, because, like, put yourself out there. Like, you have to be brave to just step on the floor, whether you win, lose or draw. That doesn't matter. It's the stepping on the floor and performing and the benefits that brings as well.
Wonderful. I mean, what is an instructor's first role? An instructor's first role is to inspire and to empower. And whatever avenue that takes that individual, you must inspire and empower. The only reason for time between grades is we can see the progress of that individual emotionally and spiritually. Physically is the thought number two. If we don't inspire emotionally and mentally, then the physicality can never fulfill its potential. If you look to only physically inspire, then I'm afraid that what you've got then is a lot of people who perhaps can kick and punch very well, but they don't get on very well in the big world. They're still quite shy, they still can't communicate very well. At MHF, what we do is the most important thing is our communication skills. You know, our good eye contact, our way of communicating in the world, so you can step out into the world and you can go on well. That's what a good black belt is. That's what white, yellow, blue, red, and black symbolize. That's what they signify. You don't have any colours that symbolize your physical ability. All our colours signify and symbolize your emotional, spiritual journey as you move forward. Because we know that when you're emotionally and spiritually empowered, then your physicality is easy because you have the confidence to go for it. Once you've got the confidence to go for it, there's nothing physically you can't achieve within the confines of your own physical abilities going forward. So the athlete in you will be empowered and be maximized through that spiritual journey. So first of all, it's spiritual and it's emotional. And then that brings forward the physical from there. That's what a martial art, that's why martial art has to come first, because it drives the physical.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that I suppose that, like you said, like as an instructor, like that's the number one thing. But it's number one on the instructor's mind. But I think very often that the student can sometimes not even recognize that they're growing more confidence. They notice the physical and learning the physical abilities and the physical skills. They don't notice the emotional growth as much. You know what I mean? It's
because it's prioritized. Here we prioritize it. I'll say to them, I don't care about your psychic. Who the hell cares about this? You know, you bring any ballet dancer along here, my friend, and me holding that leg out there, they'll laugh at that. They'll hold the leg up here. Doesn't make them a black belt. If I prioritize physical skill, then any gymnast will kick your butt. Any ballet dancer, I mean, a ballet dancer for me is the ultimate physicality on the planet. On the planet. So it is the emotional journey. So here they understand straight away. Don't you worry, you can't straighten your leg because you've got maybe something wrong with the knee or whatever else. Because it's not about the physical, it's about the emotional. So here, they take pride in the fact that their head is up better, that they can take people laughing at them easier, they can get over it quicker. That is the emotional steps they take, knowing that the physicality then, that energy then will be enhanced by that emotional state. So then you have an instructor first and a coach second. And that's how we progress. And in that way, that coach is empowered with the mental capacity to encourage and to communicate with his competitors or her competitors. And you see, so that's what drives the rest of it. That's what the martial art does. It gives you that emotional well-being, so you can go out there and do all the physical. Yeah.
I suppose just then maybe just to go back to your own journey. And I know you said like you competed for many years. Were you competitive straight away? Was that something you got into straight away, competing, or was there a long time?
That's the whole point. I was too scared. Yeah, I was too afraid of not being good enough. The embarrassment of defeat. I didn't care about getting hit because I grew up very physical. In a very physical family, in a very physical, very small mining town. So physicality and fighting was just part and parcel of growing up. So I had been beaten up many times before and been in very physical confrontations. I got my butt handed to me quite a few times before I joined taekwondo. So I knew about pain, but it was the embarrassment of going to competition and just being rubbish. That scared the hell out of me. But of course, Grandmaster Sutherland insisted, we're competitors, we're Bathgate, we're competitors, you'll get it done. And I did. Yeah, and thankfully for me, I managed to have some success, and we just built and built and built on that. And I loved it, my friend. It just empowered me like hell. Competition was all I was interested in. You know, in fact, when you walked into the door, I wanted to see, respectfully, back in that time, I wanted to see a young, fit guy walk in through the door so he could enhance the team. You know what I mean? I didn't want someone to come in through the door who wasn't going to be a competitor, because in Bathgate, being champions was all that mattered. All our advertising was come and train with the champions. That's all that mattered, my friend. That's all I did for the first 20 years. Come and train with the champions. Come and be a champion. You know, which unfortunately left out so many people who could never be that. So I've worked for so long to redress that balance. But being a champion, if you can be a champion, if you can be a competitor, we will drive you all the way. Yeah. We'll drive you all the way. So yes, loved it.
And what would you have been? I know, I suppose most of your success were in patterns, but like when you first started, was there ever a
I
pattern
didn't
first
want to do
aspired, or
patterns.
did you love them all the
I
same?
didn't want to do patterns. I didn't want to do patterns. I went in 1988. We went to our first international competition in Toronto, Canada, and I refused to do pattern. I was a young boy, and I was still stupid enough to believe in the old adage that people who did patterns couldn't spar. I thought sparring was the be all and end all back then. So I went there and I just didn't even do patterns. It was all about. By that point, I was Scottish and British champion in sparring. It wasn't minus 71 back in those days. You know, it was minus 75. I was a lot heavier then as well. You know, so I went there as I've been British champion for a few years. So I went to Canada and fought all styles for the first. We fought kickboxing, of course. We fought some karate guys because it's Bathgate. Bathgate really led the way back in the day, as your instructors will tell you, because we came to Ireland a lot. You know, I had the privilege of being the technical director for Ireland for quite a few years, with Master Cooley and Master Buckley and all those guys. So we went to Toronto. We competed in an all-style tournament, and I felt sure I was going to kill these guys. My legs were all over the place. I'd watched these guys warming up, and no one could kick like me. But oh God, these guys were good. These guys were good, and they punched a hole in me. I learned a lot that weekend, I can tell you, in Canada. Came back here, really learned a lot. That was in '88. And by 1990, 91, I had my first European Championships in Davos in Switzerland. And that again was another level, you know. So no, back then it was all sparring. It was all sparring that I did. I didn't do pattern back then.
Yeah. And what kind of made the change, and what made you kind of get involved in the patterns?
What made the change was I remember sparring with some people. I remember sparring with a guy from Belarus, and yeah, goodness gracious me. And I won relatively easily points wise. But I can tell you something right now, my friend. That guy would have killed me on the street. That guy would have killed me if the referee wasn't on the floor. And I'm popping my foot to his head, and I'm popping these 3-pointers. I'm getting the 2-pointers. I'm running to the side, hitting these shots. And none of these shots were hurting this guy. Every time he hit me, he hurt me. When I hit him, I didn't hurt him. And I didn't want to be a black belt that couldn't. Given my background, given my understanding growing up, I thought to myself, are you becoming a black belt, Mark, that really is just points all the time? So I started adapting and changing my training quite a bit. And the sparring meant a little bit less than it did before to me. And the power taekwondo, the power martial art, the power pattern, the power everything became a lot more important. The Host and Soul, the street defense. It didn't stop me sparring, of course it didn't. And we continued on for years after that. I didn't stop competing until 1997. But it did change my perspective a little bit. So I changed a little bit that way. But I still had many competitors who were European and world champions, mainly in sparring at that time, and only in some in pattern, laterally as we went forward, sort of thing,
Yeah, and what with the style, I presume, was a lot different back then as well to maybe what we see now.
Yeah, but Grandmaster Bosch changed that for us. Back in the day, the UK and Ireland fought very similarly, and that was straight forward and straight back. The meterage wasn't 9 square meters, so a much smaller ring. Your kickboxing sizes, your 5 square meters, your 6 square meters maximum. And again, we just went forward and toe more or less. The lateral movement was not the same way. You went forward, banging the legs out, and then you just went at it with your hands. So Grandmaster Bosch. In 1984, I saw Grandmaster Bosch in his Dutch team for the first time. And I saw the little dodos. We called them B-chaggies back then, which was the WTF terminology for them. WTF turning kick, straight from the ground, straight up under the side kick. And back then I remember seeing it thinking, that's rubbish, that's awful, that's an awful kick. What is that? Anyone can do that. It's a straight up kick. But of course it was about points. Who cares how it looks as long as you're getting the points? So that mentality started to change us. Because we were Riki Ha, we were taekwondo purists. The kick was done a certain way, the turning kick done a certain way. And now we're into the stage where, who cares? All that matters is winning the medals. So 1990, 1991, I saw Grandmaster Bosch again. And I watched and I thought, wow, those guys are really sharp. By this time he was the coach of the Italian team. They went in '87 to Italy, and he was bringing the Italians up. And by this point here, they already had their first world champion in Master Hutton. Wow, what a guy! What a sparrer! What a sparrer! Powerhouse, fast, strong. Scared the hell out of me the first time I fought those guys, you know. So I had an opportunity in North Korea. Grandmaster boss came and seen me, and he said to me, yeah, he said a lot of nice things to me, and he invited me to train with him in Benidorm in 1992. And for 3 nights, for 3 hours a night, he killed us. I mean, he killed us. We couldn't, Master Wallace and I were the only 2 to survive the 3 nights. We couldn't step off the curb onto the road because we couldn't bend our knees by that point. We were dead. But we formed a really close bond with Grandmaster Boss. We got him to Bathgate the next year, and that just transformed our sparring, transformed our mentality. And from that point on, Scotland just, you know, we just grew and grew and grew. And the competitors that came forward from that point really mainly came out of Bathgate. And, well, European world champions came out of Bathgate at that point, you know. Ian Burgess and Brent Lyon, and Miss Julia Cross, all came from that, all came from our training in those schools. So we had a lot of success, you know. As I say, tournament was still our main focal point. Yeah.
And so then, so when they kind of becoming an instructor, then kind of come in then to your journey, when did you kind of go on your own, or I don't know, when did you go on your own? When did you kind of?
The journey, my friend, was always instructor first, and you know, instructor was always the main thing. You know, we only saw ourselves as a coach when you put your tracksuit on to go and sit on the side of the ring, but you were still an instructor. You're never not an instructor. You just put your coach's head on, and that means that you were just there, you know, to bend the rules as much as possible if need be to get the points, you know, to work the situation, to work the angles, you know. So it's all part of it, but you're still always an instructor first, you know. And the tournament is still our number one thing for competitors. You know, as I said, when my guys come in and they want to compete, then that's the journey we take them down. But of course, they still have their street defense every night. They still make sure they can fight. They still make sure, you know, when they're attacked, they know how to strike and how to toughen their hands. Who wants to be a black belt that can break boards with their fingertips? You know, with a back fist, that kind of idea. You've got a black belt on your way. You won't be able to ensure that you can. Someone says to me, you know, what is a good black belt? I say, well, first and foremost, it's a good person, a good individual person who mentally and emotionally looks to empower themselves to build a more peaceful world, to extend the hand. That's what a black belt really is. So what other things do black belts do? I say, well, the things that can impress you is their physical abilities. Like what? I'll say like breaking boards, back fist, knife hand, tourniquet, back kick, reverse tourniquet. The power breaking that will impress you. And for those who can compete, whoa, you'll see some incredible athletes. So there's many different aspects, but they're all together. Usually excel in one or the other. Some of us excel in them all, you know, but there's always avenues for everybody. But we must not only look to be a sparrer or a patterns or a competitor. You must look to enhance whatever you're doing as your favourite by doing everything else. Because that's the way you get to know yourself. And until you get to really know yourself, you can't really realise your full potential, you know? So keeping your hand into everything really helps to enhance that overall mentality and therefore your ability.
Yeah. And so, like I said, you said you've built a new dojang in MHF, and
yes,
and it's a nice, like the pictures I see in the videos, lovely centre that you have there. Obviously, it didn't start there, I would presume. It's like what's the journey that maybe that you've kind of gone from where it started to where it is now?
Yeah,
what's the journey has that been?
What a great question. I was very, very fortunate because in Bathgate and the Grandmaster Salon, it was a full-time dojang, since the late 70s. And how lucky was that, for goodness sake? So I was training twice a day by green belt. By blue belt and red stripe, I was training 3 times a day. No, that's not true. It was actually black stripe the 10th time I was training 3 times a day, heading towards black belt. You know, so under Grandmaster Sullivan, who was Grandmaster McCallum's assistant instructor and my chief instructor at that point, we were training every day, and the classes were just knockdown classes, you know. So we had that full-time training all the way. I opened up here in East Kilbride in 1989, which is 31 years ago. And for the first 15 years, it was sports centres and church halls and all the usual journey we mainly go through. and we came here to this unit here that I'm in. It's only 2,000 square feet. In 1990, 2003, I apologize, 2003. So 17 years we've been here. And I built this dojang here 2 months ago during lockdown for it online. So it's only, as you can see, it's only 4.5 meters wide, and we're only, 6-7 meters deep. So all our online classes, and one-to-ones come from here. So right now you're on the big screen. You've got the projector up there in the ceiling, and all the online stuff is done from here. So I built this to take our online program forward, and our Martial Fit. The Martial Fit is a fitness system that I've built around a taekwondo to really enhance the taekwondo's ability, because I believe that the less time you spend in the gym and the more time you spend in dojang, then the better martial artist and the better competitor you'll be. Fit for purpose training, less time on the weights and more time on the drills, for me, is the way to be.
Yeah, I think that's even like, it goes to like even the athletes. Like I think competitors that like the weight should nearly be supplemental to your taekwondo training. That sometimes I think even competitors can get too caught up in spending time in the gym. Like obviously like that, it's supplemental. That most of your training should be on the mats.
Yes, 100%, because there's no substitute for adding, for example, at 1 pound, 1.5 pounds to your wrists and your ankles, and get up there and just continuously repping things out, making sure you're really building the fit for purpose, minimus, maximus on the hips here to really drive that 9 to 12, 9, 10, 11, 12, to make sure you can rep out those techniques all over the place. Your lateral movement, your speed hitting over and over and over, So the more you're doing that, the better you're going to be. I love watching young Solvay. I think that young man is phenomenal. We have a lot of phenomenal athletes, but I think that young man, I watch his training, I watch how he moves. That's what I love. I see him fit for purpose all the time. Incredible. And obviously, young Mr. Boss there. Wow. But so many of these guys that I love watching today, because the athletes today, overall, and this is as it should be, overall, they are so well prepared. So well prepared. I'm a massive fan. I take such inspiration from watching you guys on that floor and your speed and your movement, I take my hat off to you guys. I think you're incredible. I love it.
Yeah. So then, like, I think this is actually one thing, and I have to say, I do have I've massive respect for this, and you've even mentioned somebody else, similar, Grandmaster Boss, still in phenomenal physical shape. Like you said, you train every day, and I think that's massive. And it's massive, even like, as you said, as an instructor, as somebody to practice what you preach.
Yes.
I know, like sometimes, I suppose it can be hard. I suppose if you work on a job and you're teaching classes, sometimes people can fall into just teaching and they don't have their own training, and they lose their physical.
It's no excuse. It's no excuse. No, it's not an excuse. It's really simple as that. It's never an excuse. You live the life. That's what a martial artist does. If your belly's outside your belt, hey, no problem. Let's get it back inside. Let's inspire each other. Let's work together as a group. And there's no better time now than all the online training. When we can just go into Zoom, my friend, I can train with my hero, Grandmaster Boss. I can train with Carol Van Roon. I can train with all these wonderful people all over the world at a click of a button. I can meet you for the first time. My son told me that you're a top-weight competitor. Wonderful. So I get a chance now to speak to a top-weight competitor like this. It's fantastic. So there's never a reason not to keep yourself in shape. And I say to all those who are not quite in shape, hey, no problem. Let's work together and let's get you back in shape. Together we can get it done, no matter what. But there's not a feeling in the world, an empowerment, like being in good condition. Because at some point we'll all face challenges, emotionally and physically. And when you're in good condition, it's so much easier to get through them. So let's work together to keep yourselves in good shape.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, massive respect for somebody like that keeps in shape, trains every day, and just like you said, living the life like yourself and the Grandmaster Boss are two people who stand out like that. So yeah, I really massively respect that. So I know, like, obviously you've developed the Kubz training system.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Like, what was the process to developing that system?
Everything that I've developed, I have to say, is morphed into the feeling that when you empower someone emotionally and spiritually, then there's nothing they can't achieve physically. That's my basic mantra for everything. So in the Kubz program, it's ensuring that all the kids understand that with 100% effort and a great attitude, they can achieve so many things in life. So it's about communication skills, it's about empowering these kids. And I've got to tell you, see, by letting them understand that don't worry if you can't do X, Y, and Z. As long as you put great effort in, you'll be great. Their physical skills are phenomenal. I can't go over the skills, the side kicks, the step to the side. I've got sport Kubz and power Kubz. That's how I work them both. Sport Kubz is the fast reaction, and power Kubz is the che, you know, the hitting the kick shields and so on and so forth. And the kids just love it. They're inspired to understand that I've got a lot of kids in my school that I would not have taken in my Bathgate days because they didn't physically meet the requirements. And that hurts me when I think back then. But I had a different mindset then. But these kids and these adults can participate in being empowered, you know, as I mentioned already. So that mentality, that mantra really brings out the best in them all. And with the Kubz and the Samurais, it means to serve. No one in my class, in my school, progresses unless their parents or guardians who regularly tell me about their home achievements, make the bed, tidy the room, you know, talk with a calm voice, talk with a kind voice. And of course, their teachers will sign the permission slip to say that they're well behaved in class and that they're helpful in class. If not, you can't grade. It's that simple.
Yeah, I do think that's a massive benefit that program has, that you have developed, is that it's the involvement of the parents. I suppose, like, you know, a lot of sometimes the challenges is getting that involvement from the parents. Like, sometimes just they drop them off, they're trying to go home, they don't ask about the taekwondo training. It's just, all right, you know, there's no involvement.
I understand that, my friend. I understand that. People's lives are so busy, you know, and they've got more than one. A lot of times they've got more than one child. And let's face it, parents today, wow. I mean, they're taxi drivers all the time. They're taking their kids all over the place, you know. So like the Zoom and like the things we have today, the Kubz book and Samurai's books, that gives the parents a chance to interact with their kids. Now, I'll give you an example of what this lockdown is giving us. You come to my school now, you can drop the kids off. You can sit in the car park and look on your phone, because I live stream all of my classes to your tablet, to your car and home. My kids, my instructors here, I've got people in my cafe here, they go in and out to the cars, taking hot tea, coffee, hot chocolate, this, that, and next thing, where they're watching the kids in the car. So they're always involved on live stream, on Zoom, and live classes. So look at the benefits that this lockdown has given us. So involving the families is, for me, massively important. You know, getting everyone involved. You know, so yeah, that's what I love to see going forward.
Yeah, as like I said, I think it's much. You see the kids even. They progress much better when the parents are involved. I know myself like that. Like, you know, my dad was always my dad was always at the back of training and was always involved in. And it's much easier when the parents have that interest and want to see them develop. But when they just want to drop them off and you're trying to engage with them, and it's so much harder. You know, it's much easier when the parents want to be involved and know what's happening.
You're spot on. And I'll tell you what one of the greatest benefits is. I don't have a black belt over all of the years that hasn't at one point wanted to chuck it, especially in summertime. Well, I go and play football across the park. But when the parents are involved and they see the benefit, when they see this is so much more than a sport, so much more than a sport alone, when they can see the empowerment and the benefit they've got of communication skills going forward and how to deal with situations outside, whether it be a teacher, an employer, whatever, then when that child goes back and says, oh, I'm getting tired, I'm getting bored, hey, come here. And they grab them by the scruff of the neck and they drag them to training. And I say to them, that's what we do. We talk about that. Get their butt along here. Kick their backside. That's what we do here. We kick backsides here. But see, when they're on the floor, you watch them. You can watch them now on live stream and you watch the enjoyment they have. Now, if they're coming along here and they're genuinely not enjoying it, I'm the first to say, listen, just now it's not working. We need a bit of a break. But a lot of times, an awful lot of times, the kids will go, I'm getting bored because they want to go on Xbox, they want to do something different. But when they come along to class and the parents can watch, whether they're here or in their car, or they can watch from home because the club is live streamed into their homes, they can see their kids actually having the fun. They go, no, Sam, I can see it still working for them. And that keeps them here, which means more people will achieve more things the longer they're training. And that's one of the huge benefits we've got today of having this technology.
Yeah. I was definitely that person. I got to about, it was about blue belt. We had kind of just maybe stopped training for the summer and you got in and then we got to about September. time, and like you're out playing like you're out playing football with your friends, and I didn't want to have to, like, because I was the only one in the area that like did taekwondo, so it's like I have to leave the great football game to go and put on my back and go to training, and it's like, oh, do I have to go? And my mum and dad, my mum and dad were like, no, you're fucking going, like, to put it like that. It's like it's grand right now, it's fine right now.
I love that.
But when you get back to school and it's dark in the evenings, like you're coming into September, November, you're not going to be going out after school. You're going to be here. It's going to be rain and it's going to be cold. It's like you're going to be going to taekwondo. So, and like you said, exactly the same. It wasn't when I was there, I was ever like, oh, I don't want to be here. When I was there, I loved it. It was the discipline of, I suppose, just leaving what you were doing to put your door back on and go training.
When I do instructor courses, an instructor must set the scene for the parents. So I tell them at some point they're going to tell you they're bored, they want to stop. So they understand that already. They know it's coming at some point. And I'll say to them, and you'll say to me, I don't want to force them. And I'll say to you, what do you mean you don't want to force them? As a parent, it's your duty to force when you know better than your child. Because at some point you'll force your child to go to school or to take their medicine. Forcing's part and parcel of a parent's job. But you have to ensure that we're the right people for the job, and you have to ensure your kids are enjoying on the floor, which is why, as I say, get them on the floor, watch them, and if they're still enjoying it, then we keep them. And every time they say, I can't be bored, you know it's just the journey of getting them there. And that helps to maximise our student retention, and it helps to get our people more empowered going forward.
Yeah. I think that's always as well the question sometimes that need to be asked. Like you said, the reason they don't want to come is because they want to stay on the Xbox or the PlayStation. I don't think that's really the best.
By the way.
Wow. I know. I much prefer, like, I feel less disappointed when somebody comes at like, oh, they don't want to do taekwondo anymore. They want to focus on a different sport or activity, and it's very disheartening when they come and they say, oh, they don't want to train anymore, and it's because they're just too lazy, pretty much. And it's like they just want to stay at home. They want to, like you said, they want to lay about. They want to be watching TV. They want to be on YouTube. They want to be on the Xbox. That's always so. I find that so disheartening and disappointing. It's like, fair enough if taekwondo isn't your thing, but something else is, go after that and chase that then. But to just stay at home and be lazy, it's like, oh, really? You're okay with leaving them be lazy?
Yes, I know. It's a difficult one. But parents have such a difficult job these days, because, when I was young, I was 17 when I joined taekwondo, but still, your options were very few and far between. These days with Xbox and all these things, wow, my goodness me. For me, it's like living in the Star Trek world. So many more things for the kids to do. So we have to really up our game. And online training, is another tool in the box to help kids, a couple of times a week here, a couple of times a week at home, and that gets them training 4 and 5 times a week. And that for me is the way forward. It certainly is.
Yeah. So I think we might wrap it up there. Actually, I have to say I've really enjoyed the conversation. Really enjoyed the chat, hearing your perspective on how you approach training in taekwondo. And thanks a million for coming on.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for your time.
I have to say, actually, just like you said, like you've been over to Ireland a lot of times, and you've done, like, especially when I would have been a yellow belt and like a white belt, yellow belt, even green tag. You've been over for a good few seminars. Yes. I know you wouldn't remember. I remember because I was on them. You wouldn't remember so much. And actually, the first international competition I went to, I was a green tag, was actually to one of your competitions in Scotland as a green tag. I actually have pictures. I'll send them on. I have 1 or 2 pictures that we went over as a team. I must send it on to you. But that was one of the first times I would have competed international. But yeah,
my memories are massively enhanced. Ireland, just love it to bits. I learned so much being across there. Your instructor, I met him as a very, very, very young man. And all these guys. So we've all grown together, and the Scots and the Irish are Celtic cousins, so we're very, very similar, but Master Cooley, Master Buckley, the ITA, done what a phenomenal job competitively you guys have done across there. My hat's off, going from where you were to one of the premier groups in the world. It's just phenomenal. It really is phenomenal. So yeah, great memories and great times.
Yeah, and all of those people that you mentioned would say that you have had an influence on them, so I think that's a credit to you as well.
It's a two-way street, my friend. We've all grown together. I'm grateful for it all. That's for damn sure. Yeah. So that's all. Again, thanks a million for coming on. And most welcome. Thanks for having me.
And we'll chat to you again soon, hopefully in person to some degree.
Take care, everybody. Take care. Thank you. God bless.
Yeah, we'll see you.